Hello everyone and welcome back to Java Lessons on Codecademy. So today we're going to be looking at arrays or lists as you might know it from Python. So let's get started. So this first lesson just gives us an overview of what we will be making. So let's actually just read what it has to say. In the previous lesson, you learned a few of the object-oriented programming concepts of using Java. Classes, objects, methods, and inheritance. In this lesson, you will learn how to use some of the classes and methods built into Java to write programs to create, manipulate, and store information in data structures. In other words, we're going to be using an already made object or class, which is the array, or as you might know it from Python, the list. It might be slightly different from Python because it is a different programming language, but the concept is similar. So what we need to do for this lesson is just click run and go on to the next thing. So let's see what we need to do here. So when you provide a set of instructions in a method, you might find that a common task is to manipulate an entire set of data. Java conveniently provides control statements to run a task repeatedly. The control statement we will explore is called the for loop. So the for loop works actually differently to the one in Python, in that if you do make a for loop in Python, you would say for n in something, but in Java you would say for, and then you make the counter, or you make n, but in this case you call it counter, and you can set a value of it at the start. So this value can be anything. Then you say while it's less than 5 in this case, after you do whatever is in the for loop, increase counter by 1, which is counter plus plus. So it is quite similar to, no, not similar, it's quite different to Python. So be aware of that. So let's actually view what our task does or requires us to do. The for loop in the code editor is currently missing the 3 statements required to execute the code in the block. Finish the for loop by typing that. So what we need to do for the for loop, for now it doesn't need to do anything, which we can see from the empty curly brackets, but we need to put in the first 3 statements. So we need to make an integer called water level and set it at first to be 0. And after each one of those arguments, you have to put a semicolon. And then you say while water level is less than 7, after each time you loop, increase water level by 1, which is plus plus. You could also do minus minus, which was just decrease it. I don't know if there are any other things, but those are the ones that we need for now. So now if we run it, everything should be fine. This actually just prints the pool water level is at whatever it is increasing from. So it stops at 7, I mean at 6 or before 7, because you're saying while water level is less than 7. And you're not saying while it's less than or equal to 7. Such as you would do range 7 in Python, you wouldn't get to 7. So yeah, let's move on. The for loop we will come back to on the last lesson of today, and then we will look at it in more detail in the next video. So for now we will be looking more at arrays and lists. Fantastic. For loops will be useful when reading and manipulating Java data structures. Let's talk about a few data structures that are built into Java. The first data structure we will explore is called the ArrayList. The ArrayList stores a list of data of a specified type. Let's go through an example of how to create or declare an array list of type integer. So in Java, you have to declare what that list will store. So it can't store everything, such as you can't make an array that stores integers and strings and characters. You have to declare that it stores one thing, and you can't put, if you've said that it's going to store integers, you can't put strings into it, which is can be a downside, but can also be sometimes an upside if you're trying to do a try and accept loop, for example. So how you use it is this is by default, so you make ArrayList and then you say integer if you wanted to store integers or string or whatever. Then you give it the name and then make it equal to new ArrayList integer with the parentheses. So let's see what we need to do. Inside of the main method, create an ArrayList object called weekly temperatures that will store integer data types. So how we can easily do this is pretty much by copying what we have been given. So we do ArrayList, and then in those brackets, I don't actually know what those brackets are called, pointy brackets maybe. So we want an integer list that will store integer data types, so it needs to be an integer, and it's called weekly temperatures. There we go. And then you have to say equals new ArrayList, capital L, and again the integer, and I can't type today. And there we go. So let's run that and see if we are right. Yes, we are. So let's move on. You created an ArrayList in the last exercise to store temperature data, but it doesn't contain any values yet. Let's add some values of type integer to the ArrayList one by one like this. So how you add values to an ArrayList is by doing the name of the list dot add and whatever you want to add to it with a semicolon following it. So let's do that to the values that we are asked to do. I'll just do that here. So our list is called weekly temperatures. So we need to do weekly temperatures dot add and whatever we need to add. Oops, I didn't mean to select that whole line. I mean that whole thing. I just meant to select this line. There we go. And then so we need to add 78. Then run. Oops, we've done something wrong. So let's check. Oh, we need a semicolon. Of course, that's going to be it. So let's run. And good, we got that correct. So let's add on the other things as well. I don't know why it indented it so weirdly, so I'll just unindent that and then put a semicolon after each. And so now we need to add 67, then we'll need to add 89. Oops, 89, and then at the end we'll need to add 94. So let's just run it 3 times, and there we go. I don't really like that system of the task being blocked out, so I just ignore it and run it as many times as it's required. So let's move on. Now we can start accessing the temperatures that our ArrayList stores. We can access the elements of weekly temperatures by using an element's index or position in the list. An element's index refers to its location within an ArrayList. ArrayLists in Java are zero indexed, which means that the first element in an ArrayList is at a position of 0, which is also the same in Python, and I'm pretty sure in a lot of other programming languages, or as well as other objects, or yeah. So the example above will print out the grade value of 95, because at index 0 you have put the value, oops, I did not mean to do that, you have put the value 95, because that's the first thing that you've appended or added onto the list. So let's see what we need to do. We need to use the get method to print out the lowest temperature contained in weekly temperatures. So I'll just copy weekly temperatures, the name, and then we can do system.print. I just call it system print because it's too many words. Print in. Then inside we need to do the name of the list and get, and we need to print out the lowest temperature. So the lowest temperature in our case is 67. The first thing that we added onto the list is 78, so that's going to be at an index 0. Then 67 is going to be at an index of 1, 89 is going to be at an index of 2, and 94 is going to be at an index of 3. So 67 is the lowest and is at an index of 1, which is what we need to get. So this should hopefully work, and no it doesn't. So let's see what we have done wrong. Is that an L instead of an I? Maybe not. I will actually just, oh, we need a semicolon. I keep forgetting the semicolon. And yeah, there we go. Finally, we got 67 printed out. because that's the first index, or not the first, it's the second index, but the first value, because it starts at 0. So let's move on. We can also insert new elements into an array list. To insert new elements into an array list, we can use a slightly different version of the add method that you previously used. So previously we only used one argument, but now we will be using 2 arguments. So what we're saying here is at index 0, shove this value in, basically. So, and move everything that's after this up by 1 index. So what we need to do is use the add with 2 arguments to insert a new temperature of 111 at index of 2. So how we do that is get the name of the list dot add semicolon, let's put that in right now, and then you specify the index and then the value, I believe. Yeah, there we go. So now if we run it, everything should hopefully be fine. Yes, it is. So nothing gets printed out because we haven't specified anything to get printed out. And then on the next line, use the get method to print out the temperature 89. So why it's making us do that is because everything was shifted up after the index of 2. So let's actually do this. And so 89 previously was at the index of 2, but now we inserted 111 at that position. So now 89 is at the index of 3 instead, because we shoved in 111 at index 2, and everything after index 2 gets pushed up by 1. So the index of 89 is going to be 3. Now if we run it, what should get printed out is 89, and that is correct. So let's move on to our last topic or lesson for today, which is just using a for loop to look through the elements of the list. So earlier in this lesson we learned about the for loop. Since we've also learned how to retrieve the value at a specific index of an array list, we can now access each of the elements. So this is an example of how you can use the for loop to go through a list to print out each and every element from that list. Dot size gets the size of the list or the length of the list, and that's always going to be 1 more than the amount of indexes, because the indexes start at 0, but the size counts from 1 because that's the length, and that's why you can use a lesser than or whatever it is. So let's see what our instructions are. Inside of a for loop, print out the elements of the weekly temperatures array list. Use the get method and the int variable j. You can use the example above as a reference. So how you make a for loop again is do for, then open bracket, specify what your integer is going to be called, and set it a value. This value can be any value, but if you go out of range of the list, then it's going to give you an error. So be careful about that. And for now we need 0 because the first index of this list is 0. Then we have a semicolon, and then we say while I is less than the size of this list or this array. While that, go through do whatever is in the for loop and increase j, actually not I, by 1 each time you've done that. And then we have curly brackets, and inside what we need to do is I'll just copy this out because I don't like writing it out, and just paste that in. So what we do is print, or put to the screen, to the console, the value that's at the index of whatever j is at that point, and j is always going to be increasing by 1, so we will get each value from that list. So now if we run it, we should get everything, but okay, let's see what we have done wrong. That's supposed to be a j instead of an I, and that's supposed to have a semicolon there. 2 errors. What have we done now? Oh no. Wait, let's see. Okay. The problem was that I just put the semicolon instead of at the end. I put it in between the parentheses because I just made a mistake. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked this video, then please click the like button. If you didn't like it, please click the dislike button, and please tell me in the comments down below why you didn't like the video. If you have any questions, please do ask in the comments down below. I will be looking at them, answering them as soon as I can. So until next time, thanks for watching and goodbye.